Caleb. Let me tell you about my 10th job as a teacher/staff member at Daycare, a corporate childcare facility in Indianapolis. The company actually exists nationwide. I just worked at one in Indianapolis. I think this position is usually called teacher because it is an adult in charge of a group of kids. But in reality, this position is more like a group babysitter than a teacher. I really didn't teach anything while having this job, but I was a staff member, and I was responsible for some kids during the hours they would normally be at school. So if we just call it being a teacher, I don't think anyone would object. Semantics and titles aside, the year was 1994. Keanu Reeves was saving Sandra Bullock in the movie Speed. Simba was saving the tribe from Scar in The Lion King. And Tom Hanks was saving Bubba, running cross country, eating chocolate from a box, and drinking Dr. Pepper at the White House as Forrest Gump. The music I was listening to included Warren G. and Nate Dogg having to regulate. Lisa Loeb was asking someone to stay, and Coolio rapped about A Fantastic Voyage, which sampled heavily from another earlier song from Stevie Wonder. I did not know that at the time. I was also probably listening to a lot of country music in 1994 as well. Tim McGraw, George Strait, and Alan Jackson were all churning out hits, and people in Missouri were certainly playing them on the radio. So when I hear country music from the early 90s, I still often know the lyrics. After completing my third year of college, however, even though I spent much of the time watching movies and listening to music, apparently, I decided to look for a more professional position than ones I had held previously. Honestly, I think I was influenced by my friend Bill from Crown Hill, who landed an internship that summer in the finance industry at $9 an hour. I had no experience or interest in finance, but I liked the idea of nearly doubling my hourly pay rate, and I had spent several years in classrooms and around children. I had at least 1 year of elementary education teacher training in college, and still intended to become a teacher after another shift in academic focus during my junior year. So I thought a student-focused summer job would be appropriate. I attended a Daycare facility on 30th Street in Indianapolis near the Indy 500 racetrack when I was 2, and then again during first grade. Yes, at the same building. And I knew that there was a Daycare on Rockville Road on the west side of Indianapolis near my house on Maradona Drive. Incidentally, neither of these two facilities are still a Daycare today, though the buildings both exist and are both used as kids' daycare businesses. Interesting. I am trying to remember how I knew the job would be available in the days before internet job searches. There were classified ads in the newspaper, and that's a logical conclusion that I found the job there. But I also might have just driven by and noticed a sign in front. However it happened, I started working there before the West Side schools let out for summer. My brother and sister would still have both been in Wayne Township schools at the time, probably Chapelwood Elementary and Fulton Junior High. Only one of those schools still exists today, and spoiler alert, I taught at one of them. I became the kindergarten teacher immediately upon starting because the previous teacher had taken another job somewhere, and the other staff members had been rotating to cover watching those kids for a couple weeks. I believe I read some stories and supervised glue-centered crafts. I did these things between snack times and recess. I was probably a natural. Once school let out after Memorial Day, however, I moved over to the upper elementary group with another college student named Sherry, who had worked there the previous summer. Over the next few months, we played outside, we went swimming at the public pool at Cranert Park, we ate more snacks, and went on field trips wearing matching yellow t-shirts. Sherry was authorized to drive the little school bus. I just rode up front. One of my most memorable stories from that job involved a 10-year-old kid named Robbie. He was one of the older kids in the group and did require a lot of attention. One afternoon, he came into our section of the building freaking out about his Sleon Dion. He was nearly in tears, looking through shelves, drawers, and boxes, chanting and pleading, "My Sleon Dion! Sleon Dion! I can't find it! Where's my Sleon Dion?" Sherry and I had no idea what he was talking about. I assumed it was a baseball card or something that he could have lost within the places he was looking for it. I further assumed it was a Deion Sanders representation of one of his sports endeavors, being known as Neon Deion. Blind to the truth as we were, we aided in the search nonetheless. We enlisted the help of Robbie's sister to find out what we were actually looking for. She said it was a tape. I made yet another erroneous assumption that we were looking for a roll of athletic tape or maybe even a wristband. Eventually, I discovered a cassette tape of a popular album on top of one of the cubby stacks. When I read the name of the artist, I wondered if that could be what we were looking for. I held out the tape and asked, "Robbie, is this it?" He excitedly confirmed that it was. "My Sleon Dion! Where was it?" I told him it was on top of the cubbies. He was happy and calmed. What was the missing item of such value, you ask? It was a Celine Dion album, featuring the title song from Beauty and the Beast as a duet with Peabo Bryson. I had to look up what songs are on the album, of course. It's not as if we started listening to it right away, and that I recalled that after all these years. But that story represents one of my most favorite mispronunciation goose chases that I have ever been part of, especially between two or more English speakers. Side note, I was briefly developing a comic at some time in the past involving or based on misunderstandings between English and Spanish speakers in a restaurant kitchen environment. But that is a separate story for another format. But be sure and ask me about it if you see me. I interacted with a lot of cool kids and adults that summer, like Nick, Olivia, Taylor, and others whose names I've now forgotten. Those kids are probably in or near their 40s by now. That's crazy. In my mind, they'll always be little kids, I guess. But I left that job in mid-August to return for my last year of college. I believe the KinderCare kids' regular school schedule had started again, and I was still there for the first couple of weeks for those who rode the bus after school to KinderCare before their parents picked them up after they got off of work. I learned that working with younger kids requires a lot of energy and attention just to keep up with their behavior, leaving very little time to teach any new skills or to deliver new information that I might like to impart. A lesson I had actually observed during my practicum/classroom hours connected to the various college classes within that major as well. Which is largely why I altered my major field of study to allow for teaching older kids in high school or college instead of at the younger grades. I returned to school in Springfield and to my job in the cafeteria. I believe I tried to change my major again after this experience, but my advisor said that if I kept changing my major, I would never get out of college. So I just accepted my choice and hoped to make the best of it by coaching sports that I liked while teaching history classes. As referenced earlier, that particular KinderCare no longer exists in that location, The building on Rockville Road is still used as a daycare preschool, and there is a KinderCare facility in a newer building further west into Avon proper, but the actual personnel have long moved on from those jobs. So again, I had no future there. Actually, the director of the KinderCare when I was there left the following year to become a history teacher at my former high school. A fact I know because I ended up working with her when I was a building substitute at that school a few years later. This episode contained a lot of foreshadowing, didn't it? So there it is. 10 jobs down, 60 more to go. Yes, I remembered a few more assignments. Some of them were very short. But next up, I'm working at college again. Thanks for watching.